This is Judge Joe Brown, and we're listening to We All Be News. News-free Dixie for the 21st century.
Okay, so let's move on. We're very fortunate to have with us one of the great Memphians, Brother Ron C. Hurd II. He's going to give us an overview of the 100th Centennial Conference held in Atlanta, Georgia this summer, a couple of months ago. He's a great person, photographer, just an all-around person. While in Atlanta, I understand he went down and visited with President Carter. Got an interview with President Carter. He's interviewed Dick Gregory, interviewed many significant African Americans all over this country. And he's always around to help a solid Memphis branch do whatever we need to do. So let me present Brother Ron Hurd, who's the founder of We All Be News Radio and TV, and the son of Callie Hurd.
How you doing today or tonight? Awesome. All right, I'm going to go with Dr. AC on that one. Said we're American Africans. Y'all know what that is? American Africans. We was here before Native Americans. They won't tell you that in your books. We was already here. Yeah. Everybody didn't come on the slave ship. I hope you know that. We couldn't fit on the slave ship. We could barely get along in a place as big as this. So everybody come on the slave ship. Yeah, I definitely went down for the 100th Centennial Celebration of A.L.L. That's the association founded by Brother Carter G. Woodson, the elder that we celebrate his 140th tonight. And I actually did a video, but I'm not going to show the video here. I'm just going to show it on YouTube. So if you want to see the video, you just holler at me, I give you my card, and you look at YouTube. So we'll show it on time. But what I do want to say, I think is very important, is that what's going on in Memphis and around the country is very fierce urgency of now. I see a lot of people blaming young folk for a lot of things that's going wrong. But you can't blame Frankenstein for being a monster. It was Dr. Frankenstein that created the monster. So who is Dr. Frankenstein? Look in the mirror. You know, we created some of the things we have done to each other, but also, it's not all our fault as well, but we have no knowledge of self. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson was about knowledge of self. You gotta know who you are, where you came from, where you're going. The only true education is a self-education. That's the only one. You can't get that from a school. So what they teach us is indoctrination. That's menticide, that's slavery. Because how can you trust the same folks that will kill your leaders, sterilize women, and poison your children for knowledge of self? How can you trust them to teach you what you need to know for self? It's like Brother Malcolm said 50 years ago. He said that only a fool will let their enemies be the primary educators of their children. Only a fool will let their enemy be the primary educator of their children. So we got to ask ourselves a very important question that Dr. King asked almost 50 years ago. Where do we go from here? Is it chaos or is it community? Right now we got a bunch of neighborhoods. You know, we're not very neighborly. We don't have community because we don't control our institutions. One thing Carter G. Woodson was about, he was an institution builder. He built a solid. That's how strong a black man is. A black man is God. He built a solid. He built their reality. I remember I was talking to a teacher down in Alabama during a teacher conference in Montgomery. She was a black sister from Chicago. She kept on telling me, I'm tired of telling my kids in her classroom that we come from slavery, that, you know, their forefathers and their mothers were slaves. And I said, since nobody's going to slavery, I said, you know, who they brought over here were not slaves, but they were architects, they were engineers, they were scientists, they were culinary artists, they were anything but slaves. He was masterminds, the master builders of civilization. These who, you know, these people were. And that's who we are. But you're not gonna get that. You know, when I think about what's going on with the Darrius Stewart case, I think it's very interesting. It's very like, it's like they're doing the Emmett thing all over again. They're using the mass media to character assassinate this young man who can't defend himself no more. And I know my history, and I went to the place where they pulled Emmett out of the Black Bayou. Now, first, I mean the Tallahatchie River, but he was thrown into the Black Bayou. No, people don't know. He wasn't thrown into the Tallahatchie River, he was thrown into the Black Bayou. And they pulled him out the Tallahatchie. But I went to the store where he allegedly wolf whistled at the white lady, Carolyn Bryant. And there was an article that came out about 30 years ago in the Clarion Ledger in Jackson, Mississippi. They interviewed Roy Bryant, who was the husband of Carolyn Bryant. Him and his brother, J.W. Malone, allegedly killed Emmett Till, right? And now we know that they had some help. It was more than just them that did it. Actually, some black folks that helped kill Emmett Till, too. He moved back to the Delta, because once their trial was over, him and his brother confessed in Look magazine that they did what they did to brother Emmett. And white and blacks turned their backs on the Bryants and Malone. So they had to leave the Mississippi Delta for years, struggled a lot, lost a lot of property and businesses. And they came, well, Roy Bryant came back. His brother was dead by the time this report came out, and he said, look, I make my money on black people today. Today's black people are not afraid as it was back in 1955, but today's black folks don't know. Because they knew who I was, I'll be a dead man. See, what's good is it for our young people not to be afraid when they don't know, when they don't understand, the trajectory of what we headed to. Before there was Darrius Stewart, there was Larry Payne. Larry Payne, he was killed in the aftermath of Dr. King's last march in Memphis, March 28, 1968, in the projects by the police. I talked to his mom and his brother and his sister about a couple years ago, and they actually ran out of the city by the white power structure. The police threatened their lives, ran them out of the city, and they live in Flint, Michigan. And when I was talking to his mom around Christmas time, 2010, every time I asked her about Larry, she just couldn't help but break down and cry. And his brother had this nervous tremor in his voice, and he's on all types of medication. So that tore that family apart. Because Larry Payne was just 16 years old. He was coming home from the grocery store, and the cops shot him in front of witnesses. The only thing that's different from 1968 and 2015 is that they didn't have cell phone cameras, okay? So everybody saw what happened to brother Larry Payne. He was 16 years old, and they covered it up. And they're still covering up stuff that's happening to us. Dr. King called Larry Payne's mom that day, on that Thursday, March 28th, April 4th, 1968, Dr. King was dead a week later. So this is what we're dealing with as black folks. If you want to go, make progress, you got to go straight. But keep on going around in circles. You talk about Black Lives Matter, but anytime your oppressor picks your leaders, your movement is done. It's doomed. Your oppressor can't pick your leaders. The oppressor didn't pick Dr. King. The people picked Dr. King in Montgomery. The people organized Montgomery. We talked about this top-down, hose top down in Oklahoma, but you know that the Montgomery bus boycott was more than just about sitting on the bus. You had white cops and bus drivers raping black women. There was a famous case, September 3rd, 1944, where Reese Taylor was gang raped by 6 white men coming home from church in Alabama. Rosa Parks was secretary for the NAACP. She was called to investigate what happened to Reese Taylor. This is back in 1944. The media labeled Reese Taylor a prostitute and a home wrecker. All 6 white men confessed, but they couldn't get indicted. They tried several times to indict these folks by grand jury. Sounds familiar? They couldn't get indicted. State of Alabama issued an apology in 2011. Our bad. Reese Taylor's almost 100 years old. Imagine the stuff she had to go through for decades dealing with that. The torture, the pain, the misery, being alone. There's no justice for black men, and there's no justice for black women. It's just us. Because you cannot beg the devil for mercy. You cannot beg the devil for mercy and expect to get mercy. You cannot dance with the devil and not expect to be burned. So why am I saying all this? What is this all about? Because right now, a lot of us think we made it. We haven't made it. We have just begun. And I'm just listening to people blaming our young people. It's just ridiculous because they didn't ask to be here. They didn't ask for the conditions. They were just given what they was dealt, and they learned from the people before them. And getting back to Darrius Stewart, the reason why I said they Emmett Till him, because you read the TBI report, you see that it's a character assassination. They're trying to justify. See, a problem with black folks, like College Woodson understood so years ago, that we're always trying to justify the mistreatment we get at the hands of this system. You're always trying to justify your mistreatment. You can't get justice. There's no room for justice and love when you always hate yourself. So College Woodson understood or overstood the power of knowledge of self, because if you have knowledge of self, you would have too much dignity. You would have too much humanity, H-U-E-manity, to take the stuff that they're taking or giving to us. You know, nobody should have to bury their child before time or outlive their child before time. Nobody should try to justify why people mistreat their children. That's just ridiculous. But it gets back to knowledge of self. And this is why I do what I do. I take it upon myself is to do the work that College of Woodson does. Because if you can't find the book you want to read, you write the book. If you can't find the book you want to read, you write the book. And it's time for us to tell our own story on our own terms. Because the people that don't tell their story won't have a history and sure won't have a future. So I want to thank y'all. If y'all want to see the video, y'all can just get my card. And thank you for all this.